knows. Just trying to get point A to point B with 4 kids. I can't even imagine taking your whole extended family, a small business, servants, all your animals, and I don't mean a couple of donkeys. It even said he got to keep everything that Pharaoh gave him, everything. So yeah, Abram and Lot had so much property and livestock they eventually needed to separate. Because at one point their herdsmen were fighting with, Lot's herdsmen were fighting with Abram's herdsmen, and they were just all in this just fighting over, there's not enough land for the animals to feed, and they're going hungry. So Abram knew it was time to divide. It was time to spread out, do what God asked, multiply, and move forward. So he told Lot, he said, I'll give you first pick. Choose which land. Just choose. Which area do you want to head to? And what do you think Lot headed? Just, one guess. What would you want to take? The prettiest side or the ugliest side? If someone gives me first dibs, I'm not going to lie. I might just take the prettiest one. I'm human, right? So in verses 10 and 11 of chapter 13, it says, So Lot looked and saw that the valley of the Jordan was well watered everywhere. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So it was all like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you go to Zoar at the south end of the Dead Sea. Y'all, he chose land in Sodom near the Dead Sea because it looked prettier it looked tempting. That's pretty significant to me. This land that he chose looked extremely tempting. It looked like the grass was greener where he was headed. Then Lot chose for himself all the valley of the Jordan, and he traveled east, so they separated from each other. Yeah, he chose what looked like the best of the best. Healthy land, and everything was in front of him. But this was very important back then. It mattered where you went. Your livelihood, everything, your survival depended on the land that you went and settled. It's not like us where we can just pick a house in any neighborhood we want. It doesn't matter what the yard looks like, right? Who cares? But back then it was literally everything. So by giving Lot the first pick, Abram showed more faith here than he had in Egypt. And he wasn't acting from fear. He was acting like a man who knew his future, and it was officially secured in God's promises. God was very pleased by this. And you can see that when he decides to give Abram even more blessing and promises because of the initial act of showing faith. So in verses 14 through 18, the Lord said to Abram after Lot had left. So remember, Lot took the better land, but God said, I'm going to do you one even better. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had left, Now lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are standing, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I will give to you and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could count the grains of dust of the earth, then your descendants could also be counted. Verse 17, Arise and walk. Make a thorough reconnaissance around in the land through its length and its width, for I will give it to you. Then Abram broke camp and moved his tent and came and settled by the grove of the great terebinths, which are oak trees, of Mamre, the Amorite, which are in Hebron. And there he built an altar to honor the Lord. So the part I know I have highlighted just in that whole of he got up and he went and did the thing was he built an altar to honor the Lord. Don't forget when he extends those blessings and those promises to you, don't forget to stop and honor him. Have you ever given a gift to somebody and they don't even say thank you? I know we will continue probably giving gifts, but I'm not going to lie. I really don't at that point. If it's a continual thing, I don't want to keep giving gifts to somebody or do something for somebody if they're just kind of like, Yeah, there's no appreciation. It was more like an entitlement. Well, it's my birthday. You're supposed to give me a gift. Well, no, I don't. I don't have to. That is, I hate to say this, it's almost wrong, but it is so far from my love language is gift giving. Oh, it's so wrong. I know. You know what I mean? Like, I want to. If I find something in a store and I'll give it because I know they're going to love that. And then I want to. But when I feel it's like obligatory because they assume it's supposed to be a thing, I don't want to. But God's better than I am, so there's that. It's a good thing. Again, his faithfulness doesn't rely on our character, relies on his character. But the story continues here as Lot. So here Lot chooses what he thinks is the greener grass. Have you ever heard the thing where it says if you think the grass is always greener on the other side until you get over there? So if you ever look down at grass and you could look and it just kind of looks brown. You know, it doesn't look very bright. And so you look over there and you walk over there because you think it's greener, but when you go and you stand in the middle of it, it's not so green anymore. Because the sides of grass blades are bright green and the top of them are not. So you think you're not standing in green grass, but you are. It's just your perspective. So he thought he was going to get the best of the thing, and God was like, you're cute. It's not that, no. As a matter of fact, it was almost a punishment of thinking Lot thought he could be better in a way, like I deserve better. And so he went. The story continued, like I said, when Lot was when he went to Sodom, get this, Sodom was taken over. He was conquered. And in the process of Sodom getting taken captive by a whole nother group of people, he was taken hostage. And so then Abram, being the wonderful man that he is like, oh my goodness, I got to go in. And he goes in and rescues Lot out. Not just Lot, but he literally rescues everybody else out of Sodom. So in verse 16 of chapter 14, it says, he brought back all the goods and brought back his nephew Lot and Lot's possessions and also all the women and all of the people. So he didn't just pull his nephew out, he pulled out everything and everybody. What he did was he gathered his men up in his crew that were traveling with him. So he didn't do a Shamgar thing where he was the only one who took out 900 Philistines or 600 Philistines. He had his people, but he went and he conquered him. So, the king of Sodom did not offer Abraham anything, but the king of Salem, which was Melchizedek, offered him a blessing. So the king of Sodom was kind of a rude dude. But Melchizedek, some people say Melchizedek. I've always heard Melchizedek. So take it for what you want. But Melchizedek, I'm going to read verses 18 through 20 in chapter 14. It says, Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine for them, and he was the priest of the God Most High. I want to make a note here. Melchizedek's name means my king is righteous. Melchizedek was a contemporary of Abraham who worshiped the living God, and he's described as the king of Salem, which is a shorter name for Jerusalem. The word is based on the root word from which the word shalom, which is peace, comes. Melchizedek is a mysterious figure, apparently appearing from nowhere with no explanation of his family or background, and he is a priest of God Most High, even though there is no indication that he is of Abram's family or even a descendant of Shem. But the writer of Hebrews compares Melchizedek with another priest, the Lord Jesus Christ, in Hebrews and in Psalms, the book of Psalms. So you're going to see Melchizedek's name mentioned later in Scripture, but we don't know where he came from. I just wanted to give you a little history lesson there. But in verse 19 of chapter 14, it says, Melchizedek blessed Abram and said, Blessed, joyful, favored be Abram by God Most High, creator and possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed, praised, and glorified be God Most High, who has given your enemies into your hands. And Abram gave him 1/10 of all the treasure he had taken into battle. That's funny. That's first mention I think we see, not the first, but one of the major mentions we see, oh my goodness, one of the ways we see it wasn't necessary that he gave a tithe, which tithe means a 10% giving, but he did. He didn't have to, he wasn't obligated to, but he wanted to repay Melchizedek for being kind and blessing him. Abram had done the king a favor by rescuing the people of Sodom, but he was not nice about it, he recovered stolen goods, he reclaimed everything that the king had lost, and yet nothing. But Melchizedek came in with the blessing. I'm going to read Genesis 15:1. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward for obedience shall be very great." What I forgot to mention here too is I wanted to mention something. I want to make sure I don't forget to mention this. The king of Sodom, even though he was rude, dude, he was like, you can keep the spoils, you can, do some of these things, but he said, but Abram said, I don't want anything from you. You've not been kind to me. I will take only what my men have taken as their spoils, but I'm not keeping anything. Because he knew that this king, he could tell that this king was going to use it over his head and lord it over him. So Abram used great wisdom here. But because he didn't, he showed complete faith and trust in God, going, my reward and my blessing is not going to come from a heathen king who nearly got my family killed in the process of everything. So keep it. And he loved the fact that he was blessed by Melchizedek. Makes me wonder. I think there's speculation that was a form of Christ here on earth at that time. That could have literally have been Jesus on earth early. But the more we trust, the more he produces promises and blessings in our life. You know that old song, "Trust and Obey, There's No Other Way"? Something in Jesus, to trust and obey. You remember that song, Dad? I love that song. I used to love that song as a kid. But ask yourself, so here's some reflection for you. Get there. So reflection. When you ask yourself this, when you are tempted toward a scarcity mindset, focusing on lack, fear, and insufficiency, how can you instead trust God to provide, even before the situation has turned around? That is so hard. Like I said, I think the fear, like my friend was telling me that she had the fear of lack. And I think that's a big problem. I think it's a big problem for women. Women, we fear that, fear of lack. I still tend to buy too many groceries, even though I have no children left in the home. It's just the two of us. My husband's like, we cannot eat all that. I'm like, I know. But part of it is a fear too of not having enough. What if I don't have enough? What if something happens and I don't have enough for tomorrow? It's just so dumb. It's really dumb. And are you willing to trust and obey no matter what? It's really hard, even when stupid COVID hits or whatever I think I still have paper towels in my shed because of that. Is just ridiculous. I'm sure we're broke one week and we didn't need paper towels, but by God, I was not going to hit those COVID paper towels. But yeah, reflect on those. When you're tempted, I'm going to read that one more time, toward a scarcity mindset, focusing on lack, fear, and insufficiency. So it's not just a lack of fear of material things, but am I good enough? Are my words enough? Well, no, probably not, but that's what God's about. We're not. We were worthy enough for God to die on the cross for us, but we're not worthy enough outside of him. That's still the purpose. And can we trust God to provide even when our situation looks like it's not going to? Can we trust and obey him in the middle of all of it? That's the reflection questions. Anything, Dad?
Yeah, I want to say, the first time I've made that connection, it was real good, that the Lord showed Abraham how he was going to bless him right after that exchange he had with Lot, where Abraham was the elder, and he was actually, when they left Haran, Lot went with him because his father had died. So Abraham was his guardian. He could have said, well, you go this way, I'm going this way. But he said, you choose. And because he took the low road and was humble about it, God said, it don't matter. Come here and let me show you what I'm going to do for you. And I think that's so important to understand. It all ties in with what you were just saying. I'm not taking anything from Sodom because he said, you'll be bragging to people that you made me rich.
Yep.
God is the one that's going to bless me. So Abraham showed real early his complete and total trust in God, and it brought about humility in his actions and his behavior.